all the
Why? Why Mocha? But this is my personal.
we will do both Chitta and Mocha wherever you have interests.
Oh fuck. Okay, we are
We'll
live
be
on
ready.
YouTube. We are live on YouTube. Okay, done.
Nice, nice.
I should send both of you the link, right? One sec.
Why?
All right. We
You want us to share it with people?
If you want to.
Not yet. Today is not the day. This
maybe
is
not
first
today.
draft episode.
This is-
If you
Yeah.
want to, we are live. ये है भाई YouTube पे तो. Okay. Anyways, I think we should just have a normal conversation. But yes.
So tell us more about what you're building at Mocha, Sagar.
ये टेलस मत करना मैं बहुत मारूंगा. Yeah, I just genuinely want to have a normal. I think what were we talking about? We were talking about Patil's life at JB now. Now that he's shifted
B school
from
experiences.
now that he's
First month into B school.
shifted from like corporate. I think you're the only one who can give us that insight because Dhaval and me both like started working after college. You are somebody who worked and then went back to college. So, matlab, what was different? What was your mindset essentially while going back?
If I were to answer this honestly,
You have to
Okay,
answer it
sorry.
honestly.
yeah,
We
yeah.
do
I'm
everything
getting a
honestly
call.
on this stream.
Yeah, but I'm getting a call.
Oh,
Okay, never mind. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like because like even like the work that I did for 1.5 years was pretty halfway because there was no office, there was no schedule, routine, there was no what one would call a conventional work system, right? So going back from that to college with slightly conservative administration and the way things are structured. In fact, I think it's asking for more commitment than my job did. And my biggest revelation has been that no matter what we say, like there are a lot of children, a lot of students who start preparing for their post graduation, especially MBA, towards the end of engineering, or सीधा कॉलेज के बाद चले जाते हैं. But and the I've always seen the house split upon whether or not someone should gather some work before going off for their MBA.
yeah.
And like one thing I'm sure about is like it shows. It definitely shows in class. Like you are able to understand the concepts much better, no matter which department you've been in, no matter what work you've done. Like children who are fresh out of college, it's not only about them being able to not imagine these principles in a practical environment. It's also them coming from a purely academic perspective. That transition has never happened. They have never stepped outside. Now they are approaching this course from an academic perspective as well कि अच्छा ये केस स्टडीज पढ़नी है और फिर ये लिखना है ये पढ़ाई करनी है like that state of mind tends to get carried forward and you don't really want that. So obviously like they are still good candidates for a lot of roles.
Do you on that? Do you see that there is so when you're in college you don't have like responsibilities and you are very sheltered. Like obviously there is the academic bit that all of it is just like in theory and like you don't actually have to put anything into like work and give a product or meet any deadlines beyond the sheltered like assignments that you have. Do you think that is also a role? Because I feel that a lot of ownership comes from when you work, like and when you're given the freedom and when you have expectations that you have to meet deadlines, that there's a bottom line attached to what you're doing, and it's not just grades, which is somehow for a lot
Exactly.
of students is not important. So do you see like that difference in class as well? Like, does it come out?
Yeah, that's one part of it. Yeah, like with ownership, with responsibility, but with also the way you are perceiving any information that is coming from a person in front of you, how you are communicating, and how you're asking the right questions. You'll see freshers struggling with participating or asking.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's only the case at JB or the general trend around India because JB is a different school when it comes to a lot of parameters. So like what's true over here might not be true elsewhere. But definitely, I see like freshers struggling to imagine things in a more practical environment. One
Do you
thing that
think you would have asked the same questions you're asking today that you would have asked maybe if you were a fresher as well, because that would essentially tell you that you are slightly different or above average than the general crowd that exists,
No,
regardless
let's not
of
use
your
words like
work.
above average. It's denigrating, I think.
I don't know how to
This is
put it.
different.
Just
Different.
different. Just different in terms of like the same questions that are asking. Because right now, my perception is that Patil would have asked the same questions if he would have been a fresher from NMIMS than he is from like an ICICI Pro background for that matter. But if you think differently, I would love to know that.
I don't disagree, but I don't think like the bottom line, the premise that you're establishing, I agree. Like if I was a fresher out of college, I would have asked different questions. And if I was coming since I'm coming here of 1.5 years at ICICI, I'm asking different questions. But that would have been the case had I maybe run packs for 1.5 years, or if I had been working with some startup
I love
instead.
our Axis coming back. Yes.
Or if I had been working for some startup, obviously, like my background would have been different, and that would change and structure the way I'm thinking and the questions I'm posing today. So yeah, like I would have asked different questions, but
No, that's
yeah,
what I
like that was
actually said the opposite. I said ki Patil from NMIMS and Patil from ICICI Pro would have asked more or less the same questions, is what I said. But if you're
no, no,
saying
no,
that
no.
you're asking different questions based on your experience in ICICI Pro, that means that's actually a rich insight for that matter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Any experience. Had I been road tripping for 1.5 years, I would have still asked different questions. Like there's no objective way for me to know what the alternative present would have looked like, but I can imagine myself asking different
As
questions.
an individual who has seen you in the 2 years is where I felt like, well, I'm not saying that there hasn't been growth or something, but in terms of your intellectual capacity, I feel it's more or less in the same levels that it was when you were somebody who graduated in 2020 and somebody who's in 2022. So I'm saying
But
you're
that routine of mine also allowed me to consume a lot more content. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it was only the work, it was like these smaller things. I was able to read a lot more, I was
makes
able to
sense.
upskill, I was able to watch a lot more trash, read a lot more of Reddit. And like that is also shaping the questions I'm asking and the way I'm thinking today. I'm not saying it's coming purely from the work, but it is definitely coming because that professional relationship existed and it allowed me to do so.
Hmm. Interesting.
Interesting thought. Interesting
Yeah.
thought.
Dhaval, have you ever considered a master's or like anything that has to do with future education for that matter?
Interesting thought. So, like by the end of 5 years, what I thought was that I've studied way too much, and 5 years at a stretch is a long time. And to the point where I almost thought that should have been a 3 year plus 3 year course I should have done, like traditional law school
Yeah.
that exists in India as well as in US. But more than that, I somehow in the profession like that I'm in the legal field, I'm not able to attach an ROI or a value to an LLM like a master's course. And because I'm not able to do that, I don't know what tangible benefit or value an LLM would bring to the profession. Because all 5 years, the way we are taught and we have done things in law school, we've been told that you need to go and do internships, you need to go out in the real world and figure things out. And that will give you the only thing that will help you in practicing law more than anything else.
What
So
about the thing that you always crave, the network?
yeah, very on that, I think there are other ways of networking rather than going to a law school again. And since you brought up networking, even on the networking bit, I think networking with just the same professionals or people from the same field or same background is not helpful as much as it is with interacting with people from different backgrounds. So if I go again to a law school, I do an LLM, I will meet only lawyers. I'll only
Yeah.
meet people from the same background, which is not helpful from like what I understand networking to be. I want to have like different insights from with different
Unless
people from different.
unless you go to this
fields.
very specific law school somewhere in some Indian state where a classmate of mine decided that after engineering, the best option for him is an
IIT
LLB.
Kharagpur.
No. He actually went and go ahead. He actually got placed from NMIMS. He did a job in NMIMS. So after NMIMS, I think he did that. He quit in 6 months or 3 months or something, and he went on to do an LLB because that's what he wanted to do all the time. Which I think is actually fair enough because he was also, I think, the silver medalist or something in my class as well. So after that, he decided that, oh, I will do an LLB, which is a career switch I commend because it's something that a lot of people don't do. And the
It's
fact
hard.
that,
It's hard.
yeah,
It's
it's
hard.
hard, and he has the intersection of technology and law, which I am sure will help him somewhere in the future.
IIT
Oh,
Kharagpur
absolutely.
has the school, Rajiv Gandhi School of
Yeah,
Intellectual
yeah.
Property Rights and Law. It's dedicated for engineers who want to pursue IPR law after engineering.
Oh,
3 year course.
I did not know
Like I
that.
would have
This
loved
is
to go
there.
there,
Yeah.
but like I didn't have, like my GPA wasn't adequate. So oops.
That's actually very interesting.
But that's
Yeah.
only one specialization. So
Hmm.
you may want to. So although a lot of technology law is, of course, the foundation of all technology law is IPR in a lot of ways. But having doing an LLM only in IPR is kind of difficult because you don't have the foundational knowledge of law. So if I'm doing IPR in masters, I still know how it would be viewed from a constitutional perspective. What would be criminal provisions in, let's say, a Copyright Act or a Trademark Act? How would I be able to
No,
advise
this
on
one's an LLB
intersection
only.
as well?
An LLB with a specialization, the one at IIT Kharagpur.
But do they have like all 3 years they teach like only IPR, or is it like
I don't
same
know.
like
I'm
kind
sure
of
it's distributed so that they are prepared. Like they don't throw it at once to these kids.
And also,
interesting?
But I don't know, to be honest.
okay, I think I don't think we have any viewers on YouTube, but I think we should still clarify what sad means. It doesn't mean that it just is
I
is
think people can figure it out. Like it's obvious. It's in caps.
I'm sure they
We're
can. But
sure.
Sagar, Abhishek, and Dhaval, and some more context is me and Patil are engineers from NMIMS, and Dhaval is a lawyer from NMIMS. So this could actually technically be a NMIMS stream as well. Think about it. I think we'll
Share
get.
on like put
I
it
think,
on legacy.
yeah, no, I think we should put it on some NMIMS ka meme group, hai na?
Huh.
On Instagram or something. Abhishek, are you the admin by any chance? Like,
Not anymore. I was for one during
see,
school.
I knew
I
I
am
knew
just
Patil
thinking.
was like I'm sure Patil like it was a good guess to estimate like Patil could have been the admin for one of these groups.
For a very short duration, and I didn't make it. So this was like one of the popular ones. I think जब तक हम final year में गए तो तब तक it wasn't that active anymore, but somewhere in our second or third year, so they posted like a recruitment story. Okay, like
Ooh,
okay, we're looking for like more content creators, and like I used to always make memes, so I sent them a few, and I had sent them a few before that also, and they'd like them, and they're like, "Okay, हाँ ठीक है," and they used to repost them without giving me credit, like because I would
Oh,
specifically ask for that. But then what ended up happening is they like कि ठीक है, 4:30 come to 8th floor वाला canteen. Okay, like we're doing like a secret meeting
our
there.
canteen, like our Metipai
No,
building.
no, 8th floor हमारी building का. Like that, there was
इनका
a
आपका
smaller
तुम्हारे तो
canteen
एक
in
फ्लोर पे
Mukesh.
कैंटीन का है.
हाँ, छोटा सा था.
हाँ
वहाँ पे सिर्फ समोसा पाव वगैरह मिलता था.
समोसा शेजवान समोसा पाव खाते थे वहां सब लोग और कैविन्स
Grilled,
का मिल्क शेक.
grilled samosa pav with Calvin and like
Oh,
some like
nice.
bounty or something. Mid class snacks के लिए काफी सही था वो. So I go there, okay, and I see this kid sitting
Oh,
there.
bhai, Nilika is actually watching the stream. So say hi to Nilika.
Nilika वैसा
Hi,
super chat.
Nilika.
Nilika is actually trying to deduce who is the person who was working at this particular, like a person I mentioned right now on the stream. Like, is it that person? I'm like, yes, Nilika, it's that person only. The name that you mentioned, but yes.
So so I go there and I see this guy sitting over there. ठीक है, so I'm like कि hi, I'm Abhishek, and he's like, yeah, hi, I'm Raj. And we went on to talk for like good 5.5 minutes about how, like, I was telling him because I thought he was the admin of that page. I'm telling him कि I love your content. And he's like, I love yours too. And which made sense because I'd sent them some content before. और हम लोग 5-6 मिनट बात कर रहे हैं और फिर कि like what is your thought process, what tools do you use, ये सब. And after those 6 minutes, another guy comes up and he's like, oh great, both of you are here. None of us were the admins.
Oh, okay.
Nice, nice.
Okay.
We were under the wrong impression, and we carried that conversation for a good 5-6 months nonetheless.
Nice. Which brings me back to this brief phase, I think, which was in junior college, more than like degree college. I don't know if it was there for you guys, but there were confession pages on Facebook.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
remember that time? There were
Yes, absolutely.
two kinds of pages which were full rage at that time on Facebook. One was confession pages and one was tips pages. So there were Bombay tips, there was Nashik tips,
I
there
don't remember
was
tips.
you don't
I
remember
remember
tips?
confessions. Confessions,
There
yeah.
was Parsi tips, there was all kinds of like basically
Tips?
Gujarati tips, Gujju
Tips I
tips.
don't remember.
Yeah, so they would basically be memes on for stereotypical things that like whatever that community or what that kind of like group of people would do, and they would just call it tips. So like tips to do XYZ or whatever. And it was very interesting to see. Bombay tips was basically about vada pav, locals, and all of it. I'm talking about like 2011, 12-ish, that time.
This
This is like
reminds
10
me.
years ago.
This reminds me of that post which has gone viral. Which is like Prithvi Cafe, Vada Pav. Yeah. So I can visualize the map that he made. कि भाई ये include
his
करना,
head.
ये include करना, ये include करना, और फिर सब डाल दिया उसने.
So
Yeah.
this same guy, I came across the guy who shared the post on Instagram, जो सब share कर रहे हैं, orange background वाला. And I saw like 4-5 people share it. I'm like सबका teenage same था क्या? सबने college life same ही किया है. सब yacht गए हैं. Suburbs वाले yacht गए, town वाले गोकुल sunlight गए हैं, और
Yeah.
illegal drinking हुआ है
Prithvi.
वहीं पे. Some people went to Prithvi, then went to Juhu Beach, and that's just been life, man.
My point is, it's not bad writing. It's just common. I don't think it's extraordinary writing. That's the only thing.
Which is what I was bringing you to back. So I found this person who shared the post on LinkedIn, and I saw where they work at, and it's terribly tiny tales. So that should
No
tell you.
surprise.
Yeah, that should tell you why you think what you think.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad post. It's just like I can visualize the mind map कि भाई इसने ये सब लिखा है, पृथ्वी लिखा है, मरीन ड्राइव लिखा है, ये लिखा है, and then like how do I stitch all of them together?
एक point पे you'll get audience will come and share this because तीन तो सबने किया ही होगा.
Which just tells me that people are simply haven't put vanilla and haven't put in enough effort in writing. Like जब मैं लिखने की कोशिश करता हूँ, like I am trying or I'm making some effort to be a little profound, like profound to whatever extent I can be. But I think people have just stopped trying to do that. Like they're just like हम periphery में रहेंगे and we'll just pretend to sound like it's deep or something like that. And that just makes me a little sad. कि मतलब because I feel writing is powerful and it can actually evoke emotions, but I feel people have just stopped trying. Because I recently read an economist article which was about how writing is making a return in the mainstream in terms of like corporate workforce or anywhere for that matter because of the pandemic. And I resonated with that article, but I felt like not a lot of people were actually paying attention, especially in India, in terms of writing. Tell me how many startups actually focus on documentation or actually creating those processes because अगर तुम वो processes नहीं create करोगे, then you won't be able to scale up. Like to scale up, you will have to have those processes and documentation in place. And I've seen people struggle with it. That's why I'm saying, since I've been in this space,
process debt. They call it process debt in like some circles.
Yes, absolutely. And I've seen people struggle with it. Like I've genuinely seen people struggle with it. कि documentation में उनको बहुत कंटाला आता है. Like that's the only way word I can use. Like I can't say they're lazy. I like कंटाला आता है उनको because I think कंटाला has that vibe. So it's like कंटाला आता है कि भाई नहीं करना. And like people don't understand the importance of documentation because it's delayed gratification. When they onboard another employee or another intern is when they realize भाई इसका जरूरत था. अगर ये document होता तो फिर onboarding would have been so much more easier. Now I've spent at least 1 hour or 2 hours more to essentially onboard the same individual. If I had a document, that would have been so much more faster. And this is a realization I've had like abhi after I think 11 months.
On the onboarding bit, do you think that onboarding in the way that it has functioned up until now, the traditional ways that onboarding has function in mostly traditionally like followed companies, the traditionally run companies, is where you onboard and you give all of these details to someone like in a one-on-one interaction, which should not be the case. Whereas onboarding should be making you comfortable into the organization and culture more than anything else.
Yeah,
So, do you think
absolutely,
that
it
if
should.
you do this process, that like you put that in place, do you think that will like make things better, like from an onboarding perspective as
I
well?
You can
think
still personalize the experience, right? The
you
first
can.
week or so is always at the bigger institutions. It's usually an induction process wherein the documents are still very much there, but you are
Yeah.
explained, you walk through them, and you are given practical examples, case studies of how this culture has come about and how it is being
Yeah.
utilized. So there's no pressure to be productive and in compliance with all those documents from day one. They give you a breathing period for that.
Right.
But eventually,
Hmm.
it's all about like fitting into that culture then.
But I think when it comes to startups, it's more about like I have seen two or three approaches which are similar. One approach is essentially भाई एक email भेज दिया थोड़ा सा एकदम थोड़ा warm words use कर लिए welcome कर लिया
Hmm.
welcome kit डाल दिया and they tell you to onboard and then you have your Zoom call where you're like these are the tasks that need to be done. There are other ways where you essentially like the first call you have or the first few days that you will have absolutely no work. You will essentially just be shadowing other individuals and understanding कि भाई ये company में काम कैसे चलता है so that you are able to fit in.
But shadowing is very difficult for like an Indian like startup,
It is
because the culture that we are in, that we've been raised in, we don't understand how important it is to shadow someone and what you can learn, because we are
absolutely.
so instruction driven as a society, as people, that if I'm not told what to do, I am not able to figure out what to take and what not to.
I completely agree because I've seen that. I've seen that where people are like, but करना क्या है? I'm like, करना कुछ नहीं, बस तुम बस देखो हो क्या रहा है. Because and people don't understand the value of that. But once that shadowing happens and then you onboard them, for me it took me at least like 5, 6, 7, 8 months to create a communication handbook, create a hiring playbook, create so many documents that essentially put things into place where I can tell at least the management or I can tell people like boss ऐसे काम होता है मतलब ये करना होता है even if I'm not doing it and even if you are doing it this is how you're supposed to do things and that's made people fitting into the culture so much more easier like they know कि 2 दिन देना पड़ता है like people absorb the things that are happening in the company they absorb the way we work I have a one-on-one call with them I explain the entire communication handbook कि भाई Slack कब use करना है WhatsApp कब use करना है because ये nuances सिर्फ इंडिया में use करना पड़ता है अगर मैं abroad if I was
Yeah.
somewhere else I wouldn't have to explain these nuances but here I have to explain कि भाई WhatsApp is used here Notion is used here Slack is used here Discord is used here and this is how this company is using all of these tools and this is how you can efficiently use all of these tools and what are the expected response times for all of these 7 बजे या 8 बजे के बाद we don't expect any responses from anyone अगर तुम करते हो great good enough but अगर तुम नहीं करते हो हम expect भी नहीं करते तुमसे so explaining all of this is also very important and ये लोगों को समझ में नहीं आता because again delayed gratification it's not instant gratification you building the culture will always reap you benefits only after 1, 2, 3 years तब जाके कोई बोलेगा कि भाई तुम्हारा कंपनी में मतलब जो कल्चर था मुझे कहीं और नहीं मिला like I now have a lot of people coming my interns coming कि भाई तुम्हारा बहुत early stage था but the culture that you've created now that I've been to some other startups I can truly say that the work that you're doing here is really good and that's good gratification for us because we know we are on to something in terms of
Good
building
feedback.
culture.
Let's
Yeah, it's
not
good
don't
feedback.
call it gratification.
Yeah, it's
Because
good
sometimes it can be bad.
yeah it can be bad for sure but I have
Yeah.
a few people coming back and telling us कि भाई ये हो रहा है so it feels good कि थोड़ा अच्छा लगता है कि भाई हाँ मतलब the effort that we are putting in somebody is acknowledging that later they couldn't acknowledge it तभी because it was their first job हम mostly college लोगों को hire करते which is either their first or second gig and when it's their first or second gig they have very little point of reference
Yeah, they have no background.
yeah they can't compare it but once they go somewhere else they are able to compare it and they're like boss यहाँ culture काफी अच्छा था so that's something that's very refreshing to hear but talking about work cultures Dhaval, law and work culture, and I don't know why it has such an infamous reputation. And do you think it's valid? The infamous reputation that law firms and these people have.
So that depends on which reputation you're referring to. I'm presuming the one where it's toxic and
That one.
where.
Yeah.
So there are several firms that have like a lot of partners who have left firms and have opened their own shop with the sole intention of not being as toxic, with the sole intention of not being the same typical law firm that people are used to. There are people who are making active efforts to not be in a similar cyclical phase in the profession. The thing is that as a profession, because law is very backward looking and it's not very we as lawyers we are not very comfortable embracing technology and to utilize it to the maximum benefit, and because we're not very comfortable with doing that, we are comfortable with long elongated processes. It helps a lawyer think and view and analyze things in depth, and it gives the sense that, oh, you've done your job properly. But at the same time, we are definitely moving from that to adopting new age tech into our processes as well, like as a profession, and that
Right.
can be seen clearly from litigation as well. So it will percolate, but again, like culture can only be decided by the leadership at the firm. So
Right.
that depends on how and where you are and what kind of examples are set, and a lot of it also has to do with how much work you take. So a lot of law firms know that they are understaffed, know that there are associates who are already filled with work all the way to the neck and they cannot take more, but they still take up more mandates because why not? If you're working 9 to 10 hours every day, let's make it 12 hours. It's not that
Yeah.
difficult. It's not, it's just a marginal increase. But over time, the burnout that happens because of that continual 10 to 12 hour of work day, which is 6 days at least in most law firms, it does reach to the point where you don't know, you can't switch off from work and you don't know what to do when you're not at work. And lawyers and especially professionals at law firms start feeling that soon enough, because it's a very sedentary job. At the end of the day, you are sitting in one place and you have to think and you have to analyze. But that works a lot in process driven like practices. So if I'm in a banking and finance practice, or if I'm a gen corp practice, I know that I have to make a particular format. There's a template and I have to maybe just look at two or three things and just put it down and just give it out. But for other practices that exist where you have to think and you have to put in more thought than what is just there, and you need like the space and the headspace like that is clean and which gives you the ability to think harder and to find an innovative solution, those practices cannot afford like long hours because it actually affects efficiency and effectiveness.
Don't you
So
think? Don't you think like having just I don't know if this is a radical idea or this exists, but having a small, very small, not a very huge, but a small tech team that's not for maintenance, but for essentially streamlining process and not outsourcing it. Because outsourcing में क्या होता है बॉस कि तुम्हें expectations देने पड़ते हैं कि ये हम expect करते हैं from whatever, like if you want to create
इंस्ट्रक्शंस
a
देने पड़ते हैं.
instructions देने पड़ते कि ये वेबसाइट है और ये क्रिएट करना पड़ता है. But the minute you have a small, like a 2-member or a 3-member tech team that is within the corporation that understands what the corporation is trying to do and what this law firm is trying to do and how can we build tech solutions. Again, it takes a lot of time for them to understand the culture कि भाई इधर exactly हो क्या रहा है, क्योंकि they love, if they are somebody from an engineering background, they might not have a lot of exposure in terms of understanding law really well. So understanding that and then creating and providing solutions, because I feel wahan ek gap hai. Now if I tell Patil to actually, if Patil is somebody who fairly understands coding fairly well and also can gather a tech team below him and actually work for a tech firm, I feel he'll be able to build a good tech solution for a law firm.
But again, that brings it to the question, do you want that solution? So a lot of individuals don't feel that there is, or law firm partners don't see the point or the benefit of investing into technology. One, because it's very difficult to educate and to bring like a lot of members of the profession who are old up to
Right.
speed with all the features that exist and to have maximum utilization. That's one. And second is the inherent like nature of the profession, where there's a lot of like attorney client privilege as well as like privileged conversations that you want to make sure that even though they're traditional in nature is protected, and also the expectations that come with from client mandates. So if I have to finish or turn around something in 3 days, and the tech solution that I have in place to maybe streamline the DD process, for example, if that goes wrong for 3 hours, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth spending that time in upkeep, because that it happens once and you may just lose a client. You may just lose the business.
I think from where I am coming from, or where
Fear
Patil
is there.
yeah, but from where I am coming from, or where Patil is coming from, this just feels like a place that's waiting to be disrupted, waiting for somebody to, even from the outside, to understand this field really well, who has a fair idea of what technology
Like tech, yeah.
can do, and can essentially help so many law firms, traditional law firms, scale up in ways they haven't imagined at all, for that matter. So
Yeah.
But in Kunal Shah's words, like there's no delta 4 here.
what?
Absolutely, there's no delta 4 here. The cost of switching doesn't cover up for the
Yeah.
benefit that they are
Exactly.
getting out of this.
So this has to be a college project and doesn't have to be a startup. It has to be a college project until there is potential realized and people realize कि भाई इसका कुछ हो
There is
सकता
some
है.
value to be
There is
unlocked
some value. I wouldn't recommend leaving your day job and switching
doing
something
this.
like this, but I still feel somebody should experiment. Like, I feel synergies could be made even from Saul and Mukesh Patel, for that matter. तुम साथ में आओ. तुम Saul वाले बच्चे अगर legal internship कर रहे हो, they know the culture there. They come together with somebody from Mukesh Patel who understands coding. Now I know that's rare and that's difficult to find, but somebody who can find that, and you find synergies there, I promise.
Or a legal mind from Saul. That's difficult too.
Yeah.
Now
Or
I won't-
coders in final year from Mukesh Patel who do all the projects and don't say I don't want to do coding.
I feel NMIBIS will take down the stream now.
I was thinking that if we go ahead and we do a stream where we just talk about NMIMS, I'm sure we'll get more eyeballs than anyone.
We will definitely get
I mean,
eyeballs.
we've got our degrees, right?
Yeah.
I've
that
got
should not-
clickbait titles ready already. $2 billion. You put it anywhere in the thumbnail, you'll have like at least like 10% of that people watching.
Yeah.
$2 billion people, $2 billion. Subscribe. If we hit 50 subscribers, I'll tell you what $2 billion and
How many people
have
are
to do with
watching?
each other.
Puneet,
2 people.
Puneet is saying looking good, boys. How does
thank you,
know?
Puneet.
Did you share the stream with him?
Yeah, I did share it with.
Yeah, I put it on my no work channel on Instagram as well. So I think constantly there are like 2 people watching. I don't know if that's YouTube just delaying it or what. But
Yeah, it could be.
But yeah, 2 people is still good enough for like
2 people who's not us.
Exactly.
Oh no, one of them might be me. I've opened tab.
Oh yeah, then that makes sense.
Just Puneet then. Thanks, Puneet, for supporting us.
Super chat, guys.
Next time you'll have to put 200 rupees in super chat. And then we'll take your name.
I'm getting a call. Yeah.
Oh my god, we sounded like such YouTubers.
Sound like Tanmay Bhatt.
Exactly.
Does that
And-
so well.
Yeah,
I have massive respect for Tanmay Bhatt. Like honestly,
good.
I think like he's
I-
done.
and the like when I saw Balaji Srinivasan's podcast, I just saw another side of Tanmay. Like I saw like an entrepreneur. I knew he was always an entrepreneur, but I think that was the first time it authentically came.
Do you know
on
that they've
screen.
set up a DAO?
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
With
I know.
him and this other guy in Bangalore, they've set up a DAO.
Yeah, and I think this conversation was a part of that only. Like it was the entire podcast is on the YouTube channel there, but it is so impressive. The guy understands media really, really well. And
He knows how to get people. He just knows how to get people to watch. Like his
And it's-
grasp on content is insane.
and it's invisible. That's the good part. Like he will never show it off. Like you have so
Yeah.
many entrepreneurs just showing off the fact that they know so much. But Tanmay is like, मैं ये मस्ती कर रहा हूँ, मैं वो कर रहा हूँ, मैं ये कर रहा हूँ. Which is just so impressive for me, like to be able to do that while also knowing or being self-aware that नहीं भाई मैं ये नहीं हूँ, I'm just catering to my audience. Which I think another person who does this really well is Rakhi Sawant. I genuinely believe Rakhi Sawant does it for the
Oh, good.
eyeballs and I think
This is controversy. This is how we get into controversy.
Yeah. Are you trying to
It
like
is
get
at this point that
Bill
as
Bayani to cover this or something?
No, I'm saying it's a media. Rakhi Sawant is a media property. That's if Tanmay Bhatt is for tier 1 audiences, Rakhi Sawant is for tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 audiences essentially. Because she lives in Mumbai, she lives in Andheri. So she's aspirational in that sense for people who are looking in like tier 2, tier 3 cities. But at the same time, she's slightly relatable because she's making the same videos that they are making on Chingari or MX Takatak. So it is
I don't
such
even
a
know what Chingari is.
exactly
Sagar,
that's the
I
point.
have no idea what kind
That's
of
the
content,
point.
what apps you are keeping. On
I
your
am
phone,
not
man.
keeping. I'm just. I had to do a. My dad was asking me कि ये parent company को थोड़ा research करो, and I realized that
Yeah.
this parent company had invested, I think 20 or 15% in Chingari. So that's when I had to actually research Chingari and Chingari क्या करता है.
Moj, I know Moj because Moj
Moj,
is like growing
Chingari
up.
and MX Takatak, all of them are like more or less
Share chat and all
interchangeable.
of
So
this is
MX
same,
Tagatak
right?
is also owned by Times. Yeah?
Yeah, Times Group. MX is
Times
because
Group owns this.
yeah,
What are
Times
you
Group.
saying?
Because
I didn't
MX
know.
Player was bought by Times Group, so in turn MX started Takatak as well.
I
So
can't believe that one of the oldest newspapers, like the biggest group in the country, which caters to the traditional audience, also owns MX Takatak.
yeah, it's fascinating.
Fun fact: the same family. Also, so you heard of SP Gen? Do you know what SP Gen stands for?
Wait, one second. I need to pause you there because Puneet is saying, remember, it's not defamation if it's true, which I think is really good.
Thank you, Puneet. We will keep you on retainer. We will pay you
Oh my.
X
Yeah.
amount, which we'll agree later. We'll sign an engagement letter, and you can keep advising us throughout the stream on what we can and what we shouldn't. I'm an interested party, right? I don't want
That's
to advise
actually
you.
a good business.
We can issue an iSafe note for his legal advice.
Yeah, we should.
iSafe note, interesting.
I
We'll give you,
remember
yeah.
I remember Dhaval having some contacts there. I'm not very sure, but I think he does.
No. It's a public document, man. Anyone can access
Yeah,
it.
it
Don't need
is.
contacts
It
for
is.
that.
Yeah. Thanks for that plug, Dhaval. It just sounded just like somebody you're related to. But pardon yes, you were saying something.
I forgot what was it saying.
You were talking about SP Jain or something.
Yeah.
What does
so,
SP
fun
stand
fact,
for?
Yeah. So that's Sahu Shriyans Prasad Jain.
Oh, I
So
did not know
Sahu Jain family is your Sahu Shanti Prasad Jain, Sahu Shriyans Prasad Jain, the Jain Dalmia ecosystem which owns Indian Express and Bennett Coleman.
Oh.
Bennett Coleman is Pura Jain family, the Sahu Jains, and I think Shanti Prasad Jain.
Can you tell us why it's called Bennett Coleman?
Oh, because it was founded by Bennett and Coleman.
Yeah, so why did they not change? Like, did they never feel to Indianize it?
Colonial hangover.
Matlab, it was, I believe it was more of a commercial asset purchase than anything else. It wasn't keen. हमको journalism
You want to
बताना है.
rebrand it?
It's
Because
like
not like a-
that
it was not
has
like a
been the
republic.
family's approach with most things before that as well. When they entered chemicals manufacturing or things like that, they just acquired like running businesses and continue to operate them and make money off it.
it's like
Mhm.
it's like a Chinese company acquiring Morris Garage and telling, hey, bhai, MG ab chalayenge, which is essentially a UK brand, but it's being run by a Chinese company right now. Nobody,
Or
very
Segway.
few people. Yeah.
Segway का इतना rip-offs बने, इतने copies बने. The company which was their biggest copier eventually purchased Segway.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting. Very
It's,
interesting.
yeah, मतलब जब मैंने MG देखा था, I'd recall.
One second, guys. I'm getting a call. Continue.
Yeah, I recall. I remember when MG had come into the picture. I remember them. I think कोई quiz में आया था MG के बारे में. So the first time I noticed MG was there, But when it came back with Cumberbatch actually endorsing G and everything,
British icon
British
for
icon,
rebranding the British part of it.
exactly. I was fascinated कि वापस कैसे. So when I checked and when I realized कि भाई तो Chinese company own करता है, like there is very little relation to UK for that matter. It's
So
very
it's like
similar.
when Micromax got Hugh Jackman to advertise for them.
Similarly, Royal Enfield is also the same. Na, Eicher Motor is essentially the ones that run it, but it's a
Yeah.
UK brand that's being. It's, matlab, how easy is it to deceive audiences? That's also like, and why do audiences need to be deceived? अगर मैं Eicher Motor का bullet ये run करता तो नहीं चलता क्या? Like it's a question I have. Like some Marvel का what if होता ना? Like what if like if I had created an indigenous brand without Morris Garage or without the Royal Enfield Bullet, would it still work or would it not? Because they essentially bought the name. If not anything, they essentially bought the name, and of course, all the IP that comes to it. भाई मुझे please धवल दास के ही मुझे ऐसा डर लगता है कि भाई ये कुछ तो बोलेगा.
नहीं, I was just reminded of another bike, Yezdi, which is making a comeback. If you guys are following
Is it making a comeback or has a Chinese company bought it and saying that it's making a comeback?
So
Like,
if I remember the story correctly, currently the brand was owned by a Parsi like family, and I think they are making a comeback again, which used to be a huge thing earlier, where they had made like an amazing bike, which like Indians really like have a nostalgic like attachment.
yeah.
Like not our generation, obviously, but our parents' generation definitely, because when they were in college, ESD was the shit, and I think that is making
I
a comeback.
remember my dad saying Yamaha RX100 also being like very famous for that matter, and it got being, I think it was stolen from Mira Road ka station. So
For your father's RX100.
my father's RX100. I think it was the same phenomena that happens ना कि तुम घर से स्टेशन जाते हो बाइक या स्कूटी में, तुम वहां पार्क करते हो and then you go to church gate या somewhere
Wherever,
and
yeah.
then you come back and you
Yeah.
take the bike. I understood this phenomena when one of my friends who actually lives in Navi Mumbai did it. So I was like, oh shit, this happens. I did not know कि भाई
Your
कोई
friend
ऐसा
is not Puneet who's watching.
No, it's not.
Because Puneet has also done the same all through 5 years of law school.
Yeah, and I was
No,
like,
no, not when he shifted to Parla.
Yeah. Then he stopped coming to college when he shifted to Parla. He had other priorities.
but it's fascinating. No, I think ये जो behavior है, if a company tries to assess it, वो सिर्फ ऐसे city specific behavior होता होगा. I'm sure Delhi has another behavior when it comes to their metros and things like that. How do you commute to their metros if you're not using the rickshaws for that matter?
They just have a better network. You just walk. I think they have a better network than Bombay.
Which reminds me, is Mumbai का network ये अपना Dahisar to Andheri starting in January? Because somebody told me 26 January को inaugurate करने वाले हैं.
No.
Because the stations तो काफी ready लग रहे हैं and मतलब हर दिन there's a trial run happening which I can see from my window. Like I can see I can see metros going in and out, and we've been seeing it for like the past 2 months. Like every day.
Where does the line at Andheri say till?
So
how is it visible from your? Which one?
अरे not HQ, not Mocha HQ, मेरा अपना गोकुल कॉनकॉर्ड वाला जो घर है, तो वहां से
Please don't. You'll get doxxed. Don't reveal personal details on the live stream.
Oh my god, I don't think.
What if you get a stalker?
I think I'll have to. Oh, but fun fact, I actually bought another flat apartment in Gokul Concord. So me and my sister are going to be shifting there, and my mom dad will be staying in this apartment. So we might be wrapping.
You bought it with Mocha money?
No, bhai, kya bhai?
Mocha money.
Impetus.
Is that the thing?
Artha Sutra money. Mocha money.
Your dad bought it.
Yeah, my dad bought it. So, yeah, that's happening. Harsh already bought a new house again in the same floor only as his original house. So he shifted there. He comes to work here every day in the morning and goes back there to his new house. So we are planning to wrap up. See, the point of Mocha HQ was when we bought it was कि भाई हम मिल ही नहीं पा रहे थे कि लॉकडाउन बहुत चालू हो गया था, and we had absolute no certainty कि भाई क्या होने वाला है. But अब थोड़ा clarity हो रहा है, vaccination हो गया, so we are like अब AIC में हम रोज जा सकते हैं, and we can live at our own houses as well, and we can go to
Or you
AIC.
could get a commercial space in Boyoli as well, right?
We can, and that was the plan. But अभी क्या हो गया, AIC का business model shift हो गया. I don't know if I should be discussing this in public live stream, but
No,
पहले,
let's switch off the live anyway. Let's
yeah,
discuss.
I think
Yeah.
yes. If for anybody seeing this, thank you so much for seeing this. We hope to be back with the stream again. Please absolutely don't like, share, and subscribe, because we have
No, do like, share, and subscribe.
अरे
You're an
क्या
entrepreneur. Wear your brand on your sleeve. Always remember that. Don't be ashamed of what you're doing.
like, share, and subscribe. I'm sure
Absolutely.
we'll be consistent with this stream and do something. Please,
Maybe we'll come up with like more specific,
content.
more content
Absolutely.
agenda specific.
Absolutely. But thank you so much. I will